Hello, happy people of the life and living it. Welcome back. In our last episode, because of the length of the episode and how thoughtful of my producers for you, we decided to keep the episode short. And because of that, most of we splitted the whole discussion into two. In this episode, I know for sure it really doesn't need any introduction, but for the courtesy, we will give you one. In this episode, you're going to hear discussion about some of the difficulties with friends and also colleagues and how it can be fixed. So in the next upcoming 30 to 40 minutes, if you are walking your dog, driving around, enjoying the holiday season, just grab a cup of chocolate drink, a hot one, tea or coffee, sit back and enjoy the ride, because you are listening to life and living it. Stay tuned. Another issue with friendship is the betrayal or breach of trust. This has happened more than we can even talk about. Among common struggles is betrayal. When a friend breaks your trust, whether intentional or not, this could be something like sharing a secret you confide in them with another person. Imagine confiding in a friend or a close friend about personal issues, only to find out later that they have shared it with someone else. It hurts. The heartbreak. To be able to share secrets with your friend, you build trust. Most of us, including myself, have an iron wall around our hearts. Sometimes you feel so vulnerable, and most of us know it. So to let your guard down and to open up to someone, to let the person into your fold, it's not really easy to do. It takes time. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of energy. But after you do that, and then you realize you've been used, why? Hurts. Why does this happen? Miscommunication or misunderstanding of boundaries. Sometimes your friend might tell you something out of trust, and everything goes on boom, haywire. It's funny when it happens like that, but yeah, you feel that your boundaries have been broken, and the misunderstanding, the miscommunication that starts in there is so stressful, so frustrating, and yeah, it hurts so much. Also, sometimes it's the carelessness of various individuals. Some people don't realize the impact of their actions. That is the problem. People do not realize it. And recently I was having a conversation with a friend, and how she felt so disappointed in someone who she let in her fold, and the impact of that on her was heartbreaking. It's unfortunate sometimes I also do it, like just being careless, not realizing how deep your actions are going to impact on another person is also it's also another issue. Well, in rare cases, some friends betray or breach trust intentionally. And before I recorded this particular episode, I was talking with one of my colleagues, and we were talking about the issue of breach of trust and then betrayal. And it was, you could feel the emotions in it, like how you throw your trust on someone, or you feel the urge to trust someone, and the person intentionally decide to break that trust, and how you feel used at the end. It's really heartbreaking. But how can we solve this particular situation? Well, first, assess the situation. Ask yourself, was the mistake a pattern of behavior? One mistake might be forgiven, but repeated betrayal indicates a deeper issue. And when it happens with some people, you just can't find a solution to it. So before you make a decision after you feel betrayed by a friend, first assess the situation. Take your time. It really doesn't matter how long, but you have to put yourself also in the place or in the position of the friend, and then when you do that, you can assess the situation. You have to be open-minded. Put yourself in various perspectives at which the person might come from, and then assess the whole situation. And when you do that, you can find a common ground to either forgive or completely forget about the whole friendship itself. Have a direct conversation. And this is one problem, thinking someone breaks your heart and having to confront the person without sentimental feelings, it's always difficult. Let your friend, one thing you can do is just let your friend know that their actions affected you. You can use statements like this: I felt hurt when I learned that you shared something I asked you to keep private. A friend of mine told me that one thing she hates so much is having a three-way friendship, because the tendency of two people siding up together and then ganging over the other one is always there is the likelihood that it can happen. But yeah, when it happens, you have to have a deep and a direct conversation instead of keeping everything in you and boiling up to the point of no return. Well, you can also decide just to forgive. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, but it does mean letting go of the resentment. If the trust can't be rebuilt, it's okay, but setback from a friendship and reorganize yourself. So you can forgive, or you can choose to set back and then forget about the whole friendship. Now the reflective question on betrayal and then breach of trust. Have you ever felt betrayed by a friend? After listening to this, what steps can you take to address and heal from it? Well, the last one I'm going to talk about is growing apart. Sometimes friendship naturally change or fade as people grow in different directions. This is always because of a conflict, or it's not always because of a conflict. Sometimes it could be a simple different lifestyles or long aligned in different ways. Let's take this example. You might have an inseparable friend during when you were in high school, but now years later you find yourself in having different interests, having different priorities, having different lifestyles, and this might end up a lifelong friendship. This changes because marriage, kids, career path, or moving away from the city can also be a problem. Also, different values as we grow and mature, people tend to have different goals, and then this kind of puts friendship apart. Also, lack of time and efforts to maintain the connection can be another issue. So yeah, there could be a breach of trust. There could also be a mismatch expectation, but sometimes it's not about any of these. Sometimes it's just about you growing apart as friends. And when it happens like this, how are we going to solve these situations? Acknowledge the changes. You know, one thing is acknowledging the fact that there is a change. Look, life itself is dynamic. Life is like driving a car. You start from the first gear, and sometimes you end up in the sixth. So when the gears shift, not all friendship are meant to last forever, you know, and realizing that would help every individual to also find a way to navigate through the life we have. One also thing we can do is celebrate the good times instead of focusing on what we lost. Appreciate the memories you guys shared as friends. You are growing apart, yes. You have individual differences now. Yeah, some of your friends might be married, some of them might have kids, some of them might have different careers. But in that old good times. What happened? How was your friendship like? Celebrate those good times. Those are shared memories. Appreciate them. And when we do, we will always have our friends with us. Even if it's not physical, in our memories, we still have them. Rekindle if possible. This is the part sometimes it's a little bit difficult to talk about. Rekindling. Yeah, if the friendship still matters to you, make the effort to reconnect. Simple. Just see your friend as who he or she is. Just call, a text message. Hey, I miss you guys so much. I missed you. How are we going to go along? You might be in different cities, but that doesn't mean the friendship should just end. It's something you have built over years. So just reconnect. Put more oil in the fire and it will keep burning. Well, till this stage, we put on these reflective questions. Are there friends you've grown apart from that you'd like to reconnect with? If so, how can you honor the role they play in your life and even the friendship, or if even the friendship has changed? So the friendship has changed, yes, but how can you still honor the role they played in your life? And if you find, or if you can clearly answer this with an open mind and an open heart, trust me, friendship struggles are never easy to deal with. But they are also the opportunity for us to grow. And the self-awareness in it is also one thing we have to also keep in mind. By addressing the issues openly and honestly, we can either strengthen our bonds and learn to grow with grace. Friendship, like all relationships, require effort, understanding, and forgiveness. So this week, at this particular moment, I encourage you to reflect on your friendship. Ask yourself these questions. Which friendship bring you joy or bring me joy? Which ones feel like they need healing? And which ones might you need to let just go? Find your balance in these three questions. Those that brings you joy, you need to keep them. Those that are fading off because of issues, you need to fix them. And those that are beyond repair, you need to let them go. So which of your friends or which of your friendship associations do you need to just let go? Keep that in mind. And let's hit the last but not the least, the challenges we face at the workplace. Let's take a short break, and when we are back, we will continue on with workplace stress and colleagues. The Life and Living It show will be right back. Workplace is an integral part of our life, and for most of us, whether you are working to pay bills, follow our passion, or build a legacy, the workplace is where we spend most significant chunk of time in our lives or of our lives. Naturally, our relationship with our colleagues and the dynamics of the workplace can either enhance our well-being or drain us emotionally. In this particular segment, we will take a deep dive in the challenges of the workplace, stress, and relationship with our colleagues. We will look at some of the common issues, why they occur, and some practical solutions to help navigate these difficulties. The first of this we're going to talk about is the workplace toxic environment. We all know what toxic means and how everybody wants to run away from. But sometimes the workplace can be a toxic environment. This can manifest in many ways, including the office politics, bullying, favoritism, and the culture of blame. Imagine working with a team where the culture of gossip and backstabbing. Perhaps every time someone gets a promotion or recognition, it sparks the jealousy and resentment. Over time, this toxic erodes trust and morale, making even the most passionate employees dread going to work. Why does this happen? Lack of strong leadership and set and enforce healthy workplace norms. When I was preparing this particular episode, it wasn't an easy one. Working in a toxic environment where everybody thinks of him or herself, the challenges and the stress in it is something is difficult to relate with. Wow. To resolve this, we would it happens because the competitive and the cutthroat company culture, unsolved conflicts that are allowed to fester. I know most of you listening to this particular segment are going to relate to it, but life and living it got you. How can we solve these particular issues? Establish boundaries. Avoid engaging in gossip and navigating negative conversation. Politely redirect conversation and more constructive topics. You think people gossip about you? What do you also do? Sometimes it's funny how we tend to talk about our colleagues. The gossip is so much, and one funny thing is, the moment you allow someone to have a conversation about another person with you, and at that moment you should also realize that behind you, the same person is just going to have the same conversation with another person. So we try to avoid engaging in negative conversations about our colleagues. Document issues. And when the environment becomes unbearable, just keep a record of incidents, especially if you plan to escalate them to the human resources department. Please just document issues. The unhealthy workplace norms can be resolved when there is a proper documentation of what really happens, because HR can't always say or based their judgment on the word of mouth. But when there is a proper documentation of what happens, they can also deal with it. Well, seek allies. Find like-minded colleagues who share your values and create a positive microenvironment within the larger toxic culture. And this is always the one of the best solutions. I personally tried it and it worked for me. Likely you might find people who side with you, who have open-minded just like you are, and surprisingly, the connection you build with them, sharing a good values, will always put you on a positive perspective. And it's worked for me over the years. Know when to leave. Sometimes the best decision to find a new workplace. Your mental health and your whole well-being are worth more than your paycheck. People might think you are bailing out. No. Consider yourself. See yourself in a bigger picture. It's not always about the money. Sometimes it's about your mental health. So when the going gets tough, the environment becomes toxic, just leave. Let's take it like this. There is a toxic air, and we have been warned not to breathe. But for you to be able to make a way out of that particular environment, you have to wear a mask. Putting on the mask and staying consistently, you might get infected. But when you put on the mask, you'll be able to walk away, and that is when you save yourself, because at the end of the day, you will not have the stressful mind waking up and going to work, and that really helps. That will really help you. The second thing is, some friends are just difficult. Another major stressor is dealing with difficult colleagues. This could be someone who is overly critical, doesn't pull their weight, or create unnecessary tension. And surprisingly, I've worked with many people with this particular sickness. I call it, the sickness of difficult colleagues. They create unnecessary tension. They criticize every move you make. And instead to push the whole group, he stands and then pull everybody down. Let's say you are working with a team on a project, but there is someone or one person constantly missing the deadline. Constantly cutting back slack, and also lack of accountability. And trust me, it leads to frustrations and can lead to a burnout. Why does this happen? Different work ethics and standards. Some people do not have control over time. They don't have control over their own self. So at the end of the day, they tend to pull everybody down. And working with people like this, it happens. Sometimes it's also personal issues of our colleagues. People bring their own personal issues to the workplace, and that is one of the most dangerous parts. I work with this guy who always had issues with issue from home and then bringing it to the workplace and constantly lashing out on everybody. He tends to criticize everything, every move everybody makes, and if it's not him, everybody's wrong. Sometimes also it's poor communication and lack of the lack of direct role of responsibilities. Listen, the fact that there is a role of leadership and the line of communication at the workplace, many people can't see it. They tend to do things on their own. There is this colleague I have, and then every moment, every day, every particular shift, he comes and he changes every setting on every machine. It's so stressful to deal with him. He changes everything. He doesn't communicate. He tends to do what suits him, but not others. And he lashes out when there is a problem. Well, how do we approach this? Communicate directly. Approach your colleagues respectfully and share your concerns. For example, you might say, I noticed that you change a setting on the machine, and for that reason we are getting a lot of fallout. What was your plan? Oh yeah, how do we fix that? Sometimes you just have to also involve someone else. If direct communication doesn't resolve the issue, consider involving a manager or a supervisor or a high-ranking officer in the whole issue. Sometimes some people think I am at point 100. Relatively, they might be in point 60. But in their minds, they think they are in point 100. And this is just an example of the colleague I have. He always takes himself or puts himself in a higher position, and he considers everybody null and down. And to this extent, if you have a colleague like that, you just have to involve a manager or a supervisor, because they see those as higher authority, and their ability to listen and understand and then follow instructions of such people always also helps. Well, focus on your role. Your role is to keep documentation. Your role is to keep the meters running. Your role is to make sure everything runs smoothly. Focus on your role. Sometimes it's difficult because we always have the passion, the urge to do more. But to protect yourself, your reputation, and also to make the whole situation not to run on a haywire, just focus on your role. Now, the reflective questions. Is there a colleague whose behavior is causing you stress? How can you address the situation constructively? That's the word. Constructively. Well, the last we're going to talk is the lack of recognition or growth opportunities. Workplace stress does not always come from the overt conflict. It also stems from feeling unappreciated or stuck in your role. In the previous segment, I talked about sticking to your role. Sometimes that can cause a problem at the workplace. A lack of recognition for the effort you put on or the limited opportunities for growth that can make you feel meaningless and demotivating. For example, you've been consistently exceeding your targets throughout the years, but your manager rarely acknowledges that effort. Meanwhile, a colleague who performs at average or lower than average gets a promotion, and then they are better than you getting promoted. Why does this happen? Sometimes it's bias and favoritism from leadership. It's always dicey when you talk about when you bring up this particular issue about bias and dicey, favoritism, nepotism, all the zimness when you talk about this issue. Well, these are some of the reasons why we have the lack of recognition at work. Lack of effective feedback system in the organization. It pains so much when you do your best, but no one sees you. It hurts to feel pushed over, rejected, or not being recognized the same way you should be. Sometimes some employees are not advocating for themselves enough. Most of the workplace, you have to talk about who you are, let everybody knows what you do, and then you talk about your future prospect. Sometimes it doesn't happen. People are not able to express themselves well, and when it happens, it causes a lot of stress at the workplace. But how can you fix it? Life and living it got you. Speak up. Schedule a meeting with the manager and discuss your contribution, career goals. Be specific about what you've accomplished and what you are looking for the long-term growth. Sometimes our managers, they are also human. Sometimes they don't just intentionally forget, but they are human. Can we blame them so much? So the best way to deal with it is just speak up. One thing you can also do is just build a brand. Document your success. Share it with appropriate people, whether in a team of meeting or performance review. Just put your success there. Look, anytime I think of this, it reminds me of one of the best colleagues I have ever had, Reverend Renz Skavike. Reverend Renz was my colleague. He became my mentor. He is now one of my best friends. He said something to me, Michael, I know the way where you come from. Many people, if I talk about this, I think, how I was once a cleaner. In a reputable company, I was just a cleaner. Everybody saw me to be cleaning the toilets, cleaning the floors, cleaning the canteen floor, tables, offices. I cleaned 8 hours a day, a couple of years. But from being a cleaner to rising to the point of being recognized in the company, when I had an interaction with Renz, he said something to me. He said, build your brand, document your success, build a portfolio for yourself. Those times I didn't know what to do. He gave me a step-by-step way to build myself, to put myself out there, until the point I decided not to clean again, and I start doing what I am doing now. So yes, you have to build a brand for yourself. Put together your success stories, your performances. Build a portfolio for yourself. And when you do that, the stress you have at your workplace, you will cut a lot of slack out of it. Expand your skills. One thing many people do not want to. I was recently talking to one of my colleagues, like, you are so good in doing this. Why don't you learn to do it well? Expand your skill. It's always intruding. Like, it hurts to see someone is always at one particular point, but it pays off when you see one growing from a specific level to a higher one. And you would have to always put yourself out. Put yourself out. Build a skill, learn a skill for yourself. Expand your skill set. And when you do that, I tell you, you can be able to work in an environment even though it feels not so well and stressful. Well, the reflective question: do you feel recognized at your workplace? If not, what steps can you take to advocate for yourself? Finally, we get to the end of this episode. Thank you very much for listening. I guess right now, or as at now, we will be able to find our way or navigate our way through issues we have or circumstances that make life difficult to live when we consider family, friends, and colleagues. To sum it up, they really make life worth living, and they can be the source of difficulty in life. But just as we have learned within this episode, we can always find our way through the hard times, because without that, life is not always so smooth and nice. So I'll leave you here today. I will engage you to listen to our special episode for the end of the year, which is coming up very soon. And you will know what we have at stake for the next year. Without much ado, I would say thank you for listening, and let's keep in touch. Life is always worth living. Your life matters. Mine too. So together, let's make our lives worth living. Putting together our family, friends, and our colleagues, we can always say, yes, this is life. See you.